Hey everyone, it's me, Daniel. I just wanted to make a quick impromptu video on GitHub to make sure that everyone's able to kind of make sure they have the project on their computer and that they're able to get the latest version of the project, as well as to upload their changes to GitHub so that other people can see their progress. So I'm going to be going over how to clone the project onto your computer, how to make commits, how to push commits, and how to merge changes from other branches into your branch. So without further ado, let's start with cloning the project. So in order to work on the project, you'll first need to get the files onto your computer, and that involves what's called cloning. So if you have GitHub Desktop installed, you can open it up and then click on this file menu and there will be an option to clone. So click on that and then you can kind of just go in this github.com tab, and if you're a part of the Game Dev Club organization, if you scroll down you should find the project, and for this year it's the fall 2023 project. Now, I already have it cloned to my computer, so it's going to pop up an error message because you can't have two of the same, you can't track two of the same project in different locations, basically. But if you were cloning this onto your computer for the first time, you would click on this and then you would click clone. One of the first things you might notice when getting here is this fetch origin button. So when you fetch origin, what that's basically doing is kind of taking a survey of the changes that have been made, or it's kind of like taking a survey of the current state of the repository. And that might sound a bit confusing, but you have to remember that there's two versions of the repository when it comes to your computer and the online version where it's stored. So you have a version on your computer where you have all the files downloaded on your machine, but there's also an online server that GitHub stores that stores all our changes. And we can look at that by going to github.com and going to the project. So what's reflected on this website is everything that's stored online. And when we fetch, it basically makes GitHub Desktop or GitHub on our computer aware of what's available online. So after fetching, you'll be given new options. So this fetch button might then turn into a poll button. And what that would do is if fetching found any new changes on this current branch, like say maybe earlier in the day I was working on the project on my laptop and then I pushed changes onto the online version. Now I'm on my desktop, and if I clicked fetch, it would find those new changes that are in the online version that aren't on my computer, and it would give me the option to pull, which would take those changes and put them on my computer. So the next thing you'll want to do to get ready to work on the project is to make sure you're working in the right branch. So everyone is assigned their own branch, and I have my debyer branch, but you'll have to be working in your own. So if you've already made one, you can just click on it and find your branch, or you can click this new branch button and just type in the name you want. For example, I would have just typed in debyer. And then you can just base it off main if you want, or you could try and find mine to base it off of. So once you've cloned the project onto your computer, you've swapped to your own branch and you've fetched and pulled changes from the online version of the repository, you'll also want to consider whether or not your branch needs changes from other branches. And to kind of help understand what I mean, I'll go into a short description of why we have branches in the first place. So, a branch is like a different version of our program. So our main branch is going to end up being like the final version, where we compile all the changes that we want to be in the finished product and then push them to main. But before we do that, we separate everything into these individualized branches. And this allows us to kind of isolate different parts of our program. Now, what makes this useful for us is that it allows us to make changes without breaking everything for everyone, right? So if I'm in my branch and I mess something up, like I changed a ROM file or I delete something and now my game is broken, and I push that onto my branch, only my branch is broken. I haven't broken main or anything like that. So the problem would be isolated to my branch. Which is why it's important to work in your own individual branches. But back to the main topic I wanted to get to. Once you're in your branch, you'll probably want to pull changes from my branch, which will have updates. Because at the end of each club session or at the end of different working sessions, I'll be taking all the changes from our team and pulling them into my branch so that you guys can easily kind of get the new level changes. Or maybe my branch will have been pulled into the main branch, and then you'll be able to get all the new changes by merging from main. So what is a merge exactly? So kind of what I was saying, when you merge a branch into your branch, you're looking at all the differences between the two branches, and you're taking the changes. You're taking all the different things from one branch, or new things from one branch, and you're pulling it into your own branch. So, for example, right now, my branch probably has things that your branch doesn't. And we can see this by going to branch and compare to branch. And then it'll show you a list of all the branches with two arrow icons. This down icon shows you how many changes, in this case, the main branch has, but my branch doesn't. So in this case, my main does not have any differences that my main doesn't have any new changes that my branch doesn't have. However, main is behind 100 differences. So my branch has 100 things that main doesn't. So I'm already in my branch, but if you were here, you'd be able to come down to my branch. And as an example, I'll select the GJ Jarn branch. So this is Gion's branch. And then I can see all these different changes that their branch has that mine doesn't. So when I click this button that creates a merge commit, this will take all these changes and put them into my branch. So to get ready, you'll probably want to find my branch here and then click this button. And once you do, you'll notice that you can find those changes in the history. For example, here's a merge I did 4 days ago, where I took these changes and I put them into my branch. Okay, so once you have merged from my branch and you've merged from any other branches that you might need changes from, you're kind of finally ready to get started with Unity. So if you have the project cloned and you've already opened the project, it should just pop up right here. If this is your first time opening the project after cloning it, you would go to Open, and then you would find the folder where you stored the repository. So in my case, it's in this PC Documents GitHub, and then the Fall 2023 project. So I would just select the outer folder and then click Open. Okay, so now that we're actually in Unity, there's a couple things to keep in mind. So even though we're in our own branch, you still have to be careful about what you change, because if you work on the same files that someone else is working on, you have to remember that eventually we're going to be compiling all the changes in the main. So only one version of the file is going to kind of exist at the end, meaning that we have to be careful about which assets and files we're making changes to. So with that being said, when you're working, you'll want to make sure you're working in a scene of your own creation. So for example, if you're working in a level, you'll want to go to Levels and have your own scene to work on. So I'll make a new scene here real quick. I'll call it GitHub tutorial. And now we're in our own scene to work on. So from here, we can kind of add in everything our level requires. But for this video, I'm going to kind of keep it GitHub focused. So I'll kind of leave that for other learning resources. But now let's say you've made your own level and you've made a bunch of changes to that level. And now you want to make sure that other people can see the changes you've made. So to do that, we're going to need to make sure those changes are pushed onto the online version. So then we open GitHub, and it'll give us a list of all our changed files. So we would make a commit, and then to do that, we have to select all of the files we want to put in our commit. And a commit is basically like a group of changes. So in this case, these changes occurred because I made a new scene. I'm going to say example commit. Example commit for learning GitHub. And now I'm going to commit it to my branch. So now that I've committed, it's still only on my computer. In order to push it to the online version, I have to click this button here that says push. Or I could also go to repository and push. So now that I've pushed, if I go to the online version, you'll notice that it updated, and it showed that I got a push. Okay, and with that being said, that's pretty much all you have to know about GitHub when it comes to working in Game Dev Club, at least for level design team. So thanks for watching.